Thank you. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are gathered here on the unceded traditional territories of the Musqueam, the Squamish, the Tsleil-Waututh, and the Coquitlam nations, and that this territory has been stewarded by them since time immemorial. We recognize the deep connection that these nations have to the land and the importance of working toward true reconciliation, not just in words, but in actions that create fairness and justice for everyone. I met a woman in Burnaby, a single mom, working 2 jobs, doing everything she can to give her son the life he deserves. Her boy has asthma. And she told me on some weeks, when she's at the drugstore, she stares down at his prescription and has to choose between picking it up or paying the rent. She knows what that means. She knows the risk, and still she's forced to make that call. I could hear the agony in her voice, the guilt twisting in the pit of her stomach like a knot. But that guilt doesn't belong to her, because I know she's doing everything right. She's holding up her end. It's the system that's failing her. That's not bad luck. It's the outcome of decisions made by people in power, decisions that put CEOs and billionaires first. While you're working harder than ever just to build a good life, Canada's richest billionaires are watching their fortunes grow by hundreds of millions of dollars a day. At the same time, nearly 4 million people across this country can't afford the basics. This didn't happen by accident. It's what happens when governments have the power to act and choose not to. Liberals and conservatives put the profits of the powerful ahead of the people who make this country work. They choose, and they've chosen, tax breaks over family doctors, corporate landlords over affordable homes. These aren't just bad choices, they're wrong. They don't reflect the Canada we believe in. They don't reflect the values we share. And now, with Donald Trump's trade war, those same politicians want working people to pay the price again. They say we can't afford to invest in Canadians. But we know the truth. The money is there. It's just going to the wrong people. And all the while, the things that define us as Canadians, our healthcare, our public services, our belief in looking out for each other, are being chipped away. We won't protect Canada by copying the United States. We win by standing up, by standing together to protect what makes Canada, Canada. And that's why today I'm proud to share our campaign commitments. It's clear, it's bold, and it's focused on the people who build this country. And it starts with healthcare. We'll guarantee access to a family doctor or primary care team by 2030. We'll hire more healthcare workers, and some say it can't be done, that there's no way to get everyone a family doctor, but we know that's not true. We'll create residencies for qualified, internationally trained doctors already living in Canada, so they can get to help, working to help people instead of waiting on the sidelines. We'll stop the slow creep of for-profit care. We'll launch universal pharmacare, starting with free diabetes medication and birth control, and expanding to cover essential medicines by year's end. Because no one should skip medicine to pay rent. No parent, like the mom I met in Burnaby, should ever have to look at her child's prescription and wonder if keeping a roof overhead means leaving the pharmacy empty-handed. That choice should never exist in a country like Canada. And your mental health, it matters just as much. We'll make mental health care part of public health care. No more waiting, no more choosing between your well-being and your bank account. Because no matter what you're up against, your health, your rent, or the cost of feeding your family, you deserve a government that's there for you. That's why we'll build 3 million homes that you can afford. We'll cap rents. We'll stop corporate landlords from treating housing like a stock portfolio. Homes are for people, not hedge funds. We'll help first-time homebuyers. We'll support Indigenous-led housing. We'll take public land and put it to public use. We're going after the cost of living and the profiteers behind it. That means a price cap on grocery essentials, GST off your home heating, diapers, and the internet, retrofits to cut your bills by thousands of dollars. And real fixes to employment insurance. So if you lose your job, you don't lose everything. We're ready to act starting on day one. Because very soon after this election, there will be a federal budget. And you need New Democrats there to make sure it delivers for working and middle-class people. Because when we're not there to remind them, the Liberals have a habit of forgetting about people, and we won't let them forget about the people. So here's what we'll fight to deliver in the first year. Real steps towards a family doctor for every Canadian. Universal pharmacare, national rent control, grocery price caps, a real fix to EI, and tax relief for working people. Paid for by ending handouts to oil and gas CEOs, by bringing in a wealth tax on fortunes over $10 million, by putting a surtax on corporate profits over $500 million, and by cracking down on tax havens and loopholes. Because no nurse, no teacher, no tradesperson should pay more than a billionaire flipping stocks. We've seen what happens when governments protect billionaires instead of everyday people. We don't need to look far, just south of the border. We won't let that happen. We won't let Trump's trade war become your burden to carry. We won't let him buy our public health care. We won't let him drive up drug prices. We won't let him come for our water, our minerals, or our workers. And we won't let anyone put indigenous rights or environmental protections on the negotiating table. Because this is our line, and we won't back down. This election is about who you trust to hold that line, to stand up when it counts, to fight not for the ultra-rich, but for you. The things we're proudest of as Canadians: universal health care, pensions, protections for workers. Those weren't gifts, they were won. They were won because people trusted New Democrats to fight for them. In the last Parliament, we delivered dental care, the first steps of pharmacare, a ban on scab labor, 10 paid sick days. Now imagine what we could do with more New Democrats in Ottawa. Canada works better when New Democrats are there to hold the powerful to account. So if someone asks you, why vote NDP? Tell them this: because when we have power, we use it to fix what's broken, to protect what matters, to build a Canada that works for you, not just the ones cashing in while you struggle. Let's protect what makes Canada, Canada. Let's do it together. Thank you so much. Merci. 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 Mes amis, j'ai rencontré une
Friends,
mère célibataire.
I met a single mother who is forced to work 2 jobs, and she's doing everything she can to give her son the life that he deserves. Her son has asthma, and she told me that on some weeks, when she's at the drugstore, she looks at his prescription, and she has to choose between picking it up or paying the rent. She knows what that means. She knows the risk. And yet, she has no choice but to make that call. I could hear the pain in her voice, the guilt that was twisting in her stomach like a knot. But that guilt doesn't belong to her, because I know that she's doing everything right. She's doing her share, holding up her end, but it's the system that's failing her. But that is not bad luck. It's the result of decisions made by people in power. Decisions that put CEOs and billionaires first. And while you are working harder than ever just to have a good life, Canada's richest billionaires are watching their fortunes grow because Conservatives and Liberals think that their profits are more important than you. And they're doing that instead of recruiting physicians and nurses. They are choosing real estate moguls instead of you. These are bad choices that do not reflect the Canada we believe in. They do not reflect the values that we share. And now, with Donald Trump's trade war, these same politicians want working people to pay the price once again. They are saying that we cannot afford to invest in Canadians. But we know the truth. The money is there. It's just going to the wrong people. And in the meantime, the things that define us as Canadians, our healthcare system, our public services, and our belief that we should be looking out for each other, those are being chipped away. We will not protect Canada by copying the United States. We will only win by standing up together to protect what makes Canada, Canada. That's why today I am proud to share with you our campaign commitments. They are clear and bold, and they are focused on the people who built this country, not rich CEOs. And that starts with healthcare. We will invest in healthcare to guarantee a family doctor to everyone by 2030. We will hire more healthcare workers, and we will tackle privatization in the healthcare system. We will expand pharmacare and expand it to cover essential medicines by the end of the year, because no one should have to skip medicine to pay rent. That should never exist in a country like Canada. And mental health is just as important. That's why we will help people to have access to mental health care. Because no matter what you're up against, your health, your rent, or the cost of feeding your family, you deserve members of parliament who are there for you. And the NDP will fight to build 3 million affordable homes for you and your family. We will cap rents, and we will stop corporate landlords from treating housing like a stock portfolio, because homes should be there for people, not for rich investors. We will also help first-time buyers, and we will support Indigenous-led housing and use federal public lands to build social and affordable housing. We will lower your costs, and we will do that by putting a price cap on groceries, removing GST on your home heating, diapers, and the internet. And we will fix employment insurance so that you don't lose everything. And we will do that from day one. Because very soon after this election, there will be a federal budget. And you need New Democrats to be there to be sure that it helps workers and middle-class people. Because when we are not there to remind them, Liberals have a tendency to forget about people and give priority to rich CEOs. Here is what we will be fighting to deliver in the first year. Real steps to ensure that everyone can access a family doctor, universal pharmacare, national rent control, and a cap on grocery prices, and a true reform of employment insurance and tax relief for workers. And all of that will be paid for by getting rid of subsidies to the large oil and gas companies and bringing in a wealth tax on fortunes over $10 million, and putting a surtax on corporate profits over $500 million, and also by cracking down on tax havens and tax loopholes, because no nurse, no teacher should have to pay more than a billionaire who is just earning money on his stocks. And we have seen what happens when governments protect billionaires rather than everyday people. We don't need to look very far, just south of the border, and we won't let that happen to us. We will not let Trump's trade war become your burden. We will not let him buy our public health care system. We will not let him drive up drug prices. And we will not let him go after our water, our minerals, or our workers. And we will not let anyone make concessions on indigenous rights or environmental protections, supply management, or the French language. What we are proudest about as Canadians: universal health care, protection of workers. That is not a gift that was given to us. It is the result of a fight, because people trust New Democrats to fight for them. In the last Parliament, we kept our promises: dental care, the first steps with pharmacare, a ban on scab workers, and 10 paid sick days. Now, just imagine what we could do with more New Democrats in Ottawa. Canada works better when New Democrats are there to hold the powerful to account. So when someone asks you, why vote for the NDP? Tell them this: because when we have power, we use it to fix what's broken or protect what matters, and to build a Canada that works for you, and not just for the people getting richer while you struggle. Let us protect what makes Canada, Canada. Let's do that together. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Merci, merci. Thank you. Thank you. Merci. Merci, thank you, thank you.
We are going to begin our question period. We'll take one question and one follow. Une question suivie, beginning with David Thurton of the CBC.
Hey, good morning, Mr. Singh. When the House returns, one of the first items on the agenda, I assume, will be a federal budget. What is the one item in your platform that you can tell us that the next government will have to implement or, put in their budget for you to either support it or to make their lives less of a hell in the next Parliament?
Well, we're certainly going to give them hell. There's no question about that. That's what we do. We're going to make sure they're always putting people first. But I could break it down into two. I know you asked for one, but it's two really. One is affordability, and the other one is healthcare. And in affordability, we want to see measures that make life more affordable. That means bringing down the price of groceries. We've talked about a price cap on food essentials. This has worked in other countries. We want to see it happen here to stop the corporate grocery stores from ripping off Canadians. We want to see a price cap on food essentials. So that's really important. And then on housing and on homes, this is the other big stress for Canadians. We want to see real action to bring down the cost of homes, to build homes that people can actually afford. So those affordability, and then the second piece is healthcare. In this coming, well, the storm that we're in right now, with the threats from Donald Trump and the trade war, we want to make sure that there are no cuts to our healthcare. So in this next budget, we're going to fight back against any cuts.
And just a second question here. Your commitments will add $48 billion, if I understand that correctly, to the federal deficit over 4 years, and that's on top of what the deficit is projected to be over that time frame. So Canadians are probably wondering, and I'm certainly wondering, in a trade war, and certainly when your platform is trying to factor in a possible recession, can we afford this?
I really want to make this important distinction. In a difficult time, which a recession and a trade war represent some of the most difficult times, you can't cut your way out of those things. You actually have to make investments. Now, other parties are acknowledging that. Mark Carney's talked about making investments, but he's also talking about massive cuts. And the problem is what he's talking about in terms of cuts in his platform, he's confirmed there's going to be $28 billion in cuts, but he hasn't really laid out the details. And he has said, though, previously, that those cuts could come in healthcare and services. That is the wrong thing to do in a recession. When people are already vulnerable, when people are already worried and anxious and faced with uncertainty, cutting the very basic essentials like our healthcare and services is the last thing that we need to do. It's the wrong thing to do. Oui, donc on propose, on sait que
Yes, we know that in difficult times and in a potential recession, a trade war obviously represents a difficult period. So we believe it's not the right time to start cutting the services that people need in that context when there's so much uncertainty surrounding us now. It's the time to invest. And the other parties also recognize that it is time to invest. Mark Carney has said it's time to invest, and we must invest. But at the same time, what he proposed today in his platform is cuts of $28 billion. $28 billion. And he doesn't know exactly where he's going to cut. But in the past, a number of times, he said he will cut the operational budget, and that means services, healthcare transfers. So I think that that is really the worst possible thing to do in times of uncertainty, with a potential recession looming. That is not the time to start cutting services. The services that people need, like healthcare, it's the very last thing we should be doing. So we will defend against those cuts.
Next, we have Julianne Lapointe from Radio-Canada.
Monsieur Singh,
Hello, Mr. Singh.
vous proposez de dépenser
You are proposing to spend $43 billion over 4 years on healthcare. Can the federal government afford to spend so much in an area of provincial jurisdiction? Yes, of course, we must spend that money because healthcare transfers are there and we have to invest in the healthcare system. What I find interesting when we talk about investments in people, and often people ask whether we can afford those investments, and Mark Carney is now proposing massive tax cuts for millionaires. But no one has really said, can we afford that? Because the cuts that he is proposing, the tax cuts, will cost some $19 billion. Simply to help only people who earn more than $1.4 million. So he's proposing to do this. Okay, fine. But when we talk about investing more to help people in the healthcare system, then people say, oh, that's not possible. So I think that our priorities are twisted. Now we should be investing in people, not giving millions more to millionaires.
Est-ce qu'il peut y avoir, cela dit, des
Now, having
inquiétudes,
said
ou est-ce
that,
qu'on peut
could
poser
there
la
be
question
some
si c'est
concern,
vraiment le
or could
moment,
people be
en période de
wondering whether in the
crise,
middle of a
de
crisis this is
compétitivité
the
des
time to
entreprises avec des
harm business
augmentations
competitives with higher taxes on them? Well, there are some businesses that are making massive profits, and among those companies, they have made record profits recently. So if you can make massive profits, and now we're talking about corporations that are earning more than $500 million in profits, then we think you can contribute a bit more. We're talking about people with massive fortunes. So yes, they can contribute a bit more. Because in the history of this country, in the middle of every single crisis, the story has been about asking the middle class and the working class to make sacrifices. But no one seems to think that's a problem. They think it's normal. You and everyday Canadians should suffer. But why? Why should we be asking everyday Canadians to suffer? Why not ask the ultra-rich, the billionaires? They are in the best position to contribute a bit more. They are the ones should be doing that, not everyday Canadians.
Next, we have Rachel Aiello, CTV News.
Good morning, Mr. Singh. I noticed your platform focuses a lot on addressing the Trump trade issue, but very little else on what else your party would do to expand trade relationships internationally. Can you identify countries you'd want to try to trade more with, or existing trade pacts that you would be looking to improve?
Absolutely. We have there's two parts to the way we would respond to this crisis. We focus a lot domestically, what we can do, what we can control in our own country. And that's investing in infrastructure, requiring the use of Canadian products like Canadian steel, Canadian aluminum, Canadian wood to build up that infrastructure, creating good jobs. So that's a priority for us, but then we also do need to trade and diversify our trade. And so some of the countries that I see as great opportunities, I think of South America, Central America. There's opportunities. Mexico we should become stronger partners with Mexico. European Union, of course, is a great opportunity. Really, countries around the world. The Indo-Pacific is another region where there's great opportunities. Australia and New Zealand, countries that share values with us as well. There's many opportunities, and we absolutely need to diversify our trading relations and our partners. We cannot be so dependent on the United States. What Donald Trump has done is really changed our relationship forever. And while we will always have, I hope, trading relationships, of course, with the United States, but it can no longer be that we are so vulnerable or so dependent. That has to change, and we're committed to making that happen.
And this is the first election since India has been named as a nation involved in foreign interference in Canada. The parade route for the event that you're going to later today kind of goes by the Sikh temple where Hardeep Singh Nijjar was killed. How important is the issue of Indian foreign interference to voters here in the Greater Vancouver area?
Well, it's an issue I think that should impact and be of concern for all Canadians. What the RCMP laid out is shocking, and if it wasn't for the fact that this was on credible outlets that had reported it, you would think it was from a movie. But what happened was the RCMP laid out that for years, at least 2 years, a campaign of violence that people saw in communities across this country, including shootings, carjackings, thefts, and violence, could be tied to allegations that the Indian government had officials working with and instructing gangs in Canada to carry out this violence. And this violence impacted all sorts of communities. Any community in which one of these acts of violence happened, threatened the kids playing in the parks there, neighbors that were in those communities. It impacted Canadians. This was a Canadian that was killed on Canadian soil. And so we should take it very seriously. And for me, I believe that all Canadians living in our beautiful country should be free from foreign interference, free from harassment, intimidation, threats of violence.
Marina von Stackelberg with the CBC.
Hi there. We are seeing massive amounts of Canadians going out to advance polling. You actually voted in an advance poll yourself yesterday. Some might say that Canadians have already made up their minds. So what are you offering in this platform at this moment that could change it for them?
Well, we know that there's still going to be, of course, lots of people voting on Election Day. When I go door to door, I remember back when I was not a leader and encouraging people to go to the advance polls, people saying, no, I like the excitement of voting on voting day. So as much to my dismay as someone that wanted to get them out early, to get them out on advance polls, people still like to come out to vote on the last day of election, and evidence shows that's where most Canadians go out to vote. So we are very confident that the next 10 days will be vitally important, or the next 9 days are vitally important for Canadians to make that choice. And I want to remind people, Mark Carney has now just confirmed it with his platform. His plan does include cuts, massive cuts. And his cuts are not specified in the platform, but he has repeated again and again that his cuts will come to the operating budget, and he has defined that as basically services and transfers that includes healthcare. And I'm deeply worried that that is what he will do. And we know that liberals left on their own often forget about the people. And they're too caught up in helping out those at the very top, rich CEOs, the super wealthy, big corporations, and they forget about everyone else. And that cannot happen, particularly in this crisis. So, good news is people have the power to use their vote to re-elect New Democrats and send New Democrats to Ottawa to stand up and fight for them.
En français, s'il vous plaît.
OK, en français. Première. Oui. Parfait. Oui, absolument.
Yes, absolutely. We saw this, and we've noted that there's a great deal of participation in the advance polls today. And in spite of that, we know that often people prefer to vote on Election Day. And I remember when I was a provincial member of the legislature, I always tried to encourage people to vote early, but they would say to me, no, we prefer to wait till the last day to vote. There's a certain amount of energy surrounding Election Day. So in these last days of the campaign, obviously this is a very important moment again to encourage people to get out and vote. And it's more important than ever to vote, because Mark Carney has confirmed our worries in his election platform, and the fact that he will make massive cuts, some $28 billion of cuts. He didn't say exactly where he will cut, but in the past he mentioned a number of times that he will be cutting the operational budget, and he defined that budget as including healthcare transfers, transfers to individuals. So people who are worried about Mark Carney cutting the services that you need, and people actually know that often when the Liberals are in office, they are work for the rich companies and CEOs rather than everyday Canadians. If you are worried about that, you have the possibility of voting for outgoing New Democratic MPs and even voting for more New Democrats to define the things that you hold dear.
You mentioned the Liberals' platform. It's a day of dueling platforms, as the Liberals have put out theirs as well. They are also promising tax cuts. They are promising housing supports. What are the significant differences with your platform?
The Liberals are proposing massive cuts at a time of potential recession, uncertainty, anxiety, and worry. And that is the last thing that we need. We need investments in people. We need to defend our healthcare system. We need to improve it and strengthen it. The other major difference is we are showing you who we're in it for, because we are the only party talking about a wealth tax. We're the only party saying those at the very, very, very top, the super rich, the ultra rich, should contribute a little bit more. In this time of difficulty, we're asking them to contribute a bit more. And that's something that the Liberals, sadly, are not interested in doing. In fact, they're spending, one of their biggest costs is a $19 billion cost to give a tax break that mostly helps millionaires. That shows you their priority. It's a bad priority. I don't think we can afford that at this time. $19 billion that goes mostly to millionaires, that is the wrong thing to do. And so that really sets apart the difference between us and them. We want the super wealthy to have a wealth tax. They want to give a tax cut to millionaires. I think their choices are wrong.
These will be the last questions. Priscilla Huang, Sing Tao.
As you mentioned, illegal guns and drugs are the biggest threat problem that put Canadians in danger. So can you just explain more detail on this issue and how NDP are going to do and to solve the problem? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. When we talk about some of the really troubling violence that we see in our country and the really heartbreaking opioid crisis, the toxic drugs that are in our communities come mostly from across the border. The fentanyl, the opioids come across the border, and even the elements that are needed to, or the materials needed to make this dangerous and toxic drug comes from across the borders. When we look at violence in communities, gun violence, most of that gun violence is committed using illegal guns that, of course, again, cross the border illegally. And so we want to stop crime before it happens. We want to take the guns out of the hands of the criminals before they become used. So we want to stop those guns from getting across the border. We want to stop the toxic drugs from even getting into our communities in the first place. So we want to stop them at the border. And the way we do that is by strengthening our border, hiring more border security officers. And so that's a big part of our plan. That's a big part of our plan to strengthen the number of border officers, not just having technology, but actually having people on the ground. That's the way to keep our borders secure. And I just want to point out the difference between us and the other parties. Pierre Poilievre likes to talk a big talk about this, but when he was in government, the Conservatives, in one day alone, cut 1,100 border security officers in one day, 1,100. And that meant that our borders were weaker. That meant more illegal material could cross the borders. So they cannot be trusted with border security because when they were in power, they fired those workers, made our borders weaker. And so our commitment is to strengthen our borders and make sure we can keep our country safe. Thank you, everybody. That's the last question. Merci beaucoup. Thank you, tout le monde. Love you all. You're amazing. Here's right there. Thank you so much. Thank you all.
If you're just joining us here on CBC News Network, hello everyone. My name is Natasha Fatah, and we've been taking you live to Burnaby, British Columbia, where NDP leader Jagmeet Singh has been presenting his platform for the NDP heading into this federal election. We've got a lot to jam into this hour, so let's not waste any time. Let's go immediately to CBC's Julia Wong, who's joining us from Ottawa. She was listening in. Key takeaways for you, Julia.
Yeah, a few different ones, and I just want to dive into some specifics that our colleagues got as they were going through the NDP's costed platform. The NDP say that with their commitments, they will be adding $48 billion to the federal deficit over 4 years. And then moving on to healthcare, they're committed to spending about $46 billion over 4 years to get every Canadian a family doctor, which we know has been a major issue coast to coast to coast, to expand pharmacare and also to improve mental health coverage. They are also estimating that their total tax cuts will cost more than about $66 billion over 4 years. They have a promise to slash GST on essentials. That will cost about $18 billion. And their middle-class tax cut will mean about $48 billion over 4 years. And Singh addressed how the party would pay for all of this. He said that they will be ending subsidies to oil and gas CEOs. They will also have a wealth tax on people who have more than $10 $10 million. That is expected to generate more than $94 billion in new revenue. And then there will be a surtax on corporate profits over $500 billion. They will also be cracking down on tax havens and loopholes. There was a question that was posed by our colleague David Thurton about how Canada can afford to be adding to the federal deficit at this time of turmoil with this trade war that we're seeing with the United States. What we heard from Singh is that right now we're in a difficult time, but he's saying that Canada can't cut its way out of these things, that it has to make investments. A couple other things that jumped out during some of his prepared remarks. We know that NDP are trailing in the polls, that a lot of their supporters have moved to support Mark Carney and the federal Liberals. And Singh has been making this case over the last couple weeks about how he hopes those voters can come back. And what he has been saying and what he reiterated again today is that the NDP were able to achieve a lot when they were able to hold the government accountable, that they were able to bring things like dental care, like pharmacare, and reminding people that if they want some of those things and if they want more of these things, then they are the best party, the best suited party to hold the government accountable.
Okay, CBC's Julia Wong in Ottawa. Thank you so much, Julia. And earlier today, the Liberal Party also laid out its fully costed platform. What amount to its promises to Canadians in the face of economic uncertainty whipped up by U.S. tariffs? Here's Leader Mark Carney speaking in Whitby, just east of Toronto.
What we're doing is we're taking government spending, which has been growing too fast. It's been growing at 9%